we do have one more time, one more song to do, one more piece. This last piece by the great Artie Shaw, one of the greatest clarinetists of all time, of the 20th century for sure. A brilliant clarinetist, and this piece is so wonderful because it really synthesizes what we've been talking about this whole concert. It has the sort of boogie-woogie jazz side to it, but there are these moments in it where the sort of clarinet takes over and you feel yourself back in the synagogue where he was first training, and this wonderful cantatorial style and the klezmer music coming in there. And Artie Shaw was a fascinating character, not an easy man to get along with. His birth name was Avraham ben Yitzhak Arshovsky, definitely Jewish, and grew up in New Haven, learned his trade at the synagogue there in New Haven, but was ultimately bullied largely because of his Jewishness, and decided he wanted to get away from that. And so he knew that as soon as he started music, he would change his name to something that didn't sound too Jewish. So his original name that he chose was Art Shaw, but there was a problem with that.
When he got signed to his big record contract with RCA Victor, supposedly the president of the record company complained that Art Shaw sounded too much like a sneeze.
Sure. So he ended up going with Artie Shaw instead. But there's no doubt that he had a hard childhood. I don't think his father treated him well, probably forced him to play the clarinet as much as we know. But he was also a great narcissist, really thought the world revolved around him. And Aram Saroyan, a wonderful writer who was friends with him, he said his ultimate pastime was telling and retelling his stories. And he was always the central figure of stories. And the attitude was always the same, from beginning to end. I'm a gifted, supremely gifted human being, and the world has endeavored to drive me crazy. So he really struggled with sort of not understanding the world around him. One of the most famous episodes in his career was that he was just sort of making it big as a band leader in 1939, and he was doing a concert at the Hotel Pennsylvania in New York City. And his band played the first half. And apparently at intermission, he walked out and headed towards Acapulco and just left his band behind. And when asked why he did that, he said, I wanted to resign from the planet, not just music. It stopped being fun with success. Money got in the way. Everybody got greedy, including me. Fear set in. I got miserable when I became a commodity. So he ends up spending a few months in this little village, Acapulco, that nobody really knew much about, and he was actually only discovered down there when he ended up rescuing a woman from drowning, and they figured out who this was. He ultimately would make his way back into the band and stayed with them for about the next 12 years, writing this wonderful concerto that we'll hear in 1942. But in March of 1954, still at the very young age of 43, in the prime of his career, he put down the clarinet one day, and he never touched it again. And again, when asked why he did this, he said, it was like having a gangrenous arm. The only thing you can do is amputate it. Obviously, you're going to miss the arm, but if you don't cut it off, you'll die. So he just didn't really love this clarinet. He was great at it, but it just was not going to work for him as a career, so he gave it up. And again, during that whole time, he really sort of treated his audience kind of like morons. He kept, one of his famous quotes is, if I can find it, I could never understand why people wanted to dance to my music. I thought I made it good enough just to listen to. So I missed the concept. But after he puts down the clarinet, he got more involved with marrying a lot of women. He married 8 times and divorced 8 times. Including some very famous women, Lana Turner, Ava Gardner, Judy Garland, I think he was with for a while, some really great celebrities. He was a very good-looking man. There's a great quote he said once, you have no idea about the women I didn't marry. So he obviously had a good time. But he also went on the college lecture circuit with 3 very funny themes to his lectures. One was called The Artist in a Material Society, something that he could not stand. Psychotherapy and the creative artist, something he needed a lot of. And the last one, my favorite, consecutive monogamy and ideal divorce. That was his. He also wrote a very good autobiography, sort of describing his life a bit. It's called The Trouble with Cinderella, Why There's No Fairy Tales in Life. and very sort of deeply moving. But late in life, after that 8th divorce, he actually wrote another book called, it was a book of short stories, and it's called I Love You, I Hate You, Drop Dead. That is his final book. So this was definitely a different little character. He actually said that, I pardon my language, but this is Artie Shaw's words, talking about the American public. He said, no matter how carefully and assiduously and how deeply you bury shit, the American public will find it and buy it in large quantity. And my last quote about, he was not into the whole drug scene that sort of goes a lot with jazz. He said once, jazz was born out of the whiskey bottle, was raised on marijuana, and will expire on cocaine. So we're going to play this sort of wonderful piece. Again, he wrote it for his big band, but I'll be the whole big band for now. And in the middle of this is a section where it's just a drum solo. So I got my little bongos ready, we'll do that. But again, listen for sort of the klezmer and the Jewish cantatorial stuff that fits in the middle of all this.